Well, good afternoon and welcome to the 2022 Sunshine Luncheon. I know the Pasco Chamber Board of Directors are ecstatic with the turnout today, so it's good to see everybody here in full force. My name is Colin Hastings. I'm the Executive Director of the Pasco Chamber of Commerce, and we'd like to thank GISA for being our sponsor again every year for the Sunshine Luncheon. We'll hear from them a little bit later, but before we do that, I'd like to invite everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may take a seat. We have a packed program today, so I wanted to jump right in and first start off with the acknowledgement of our elected officials that have joined us here today. So when you have a chance, please stand up when I read your name. We have from the City of Pasco, Mayor Blanche Barajas, Councilmember Dave Milne, Councilwoman Zara Roach, Irving Brown, new council member. So let's give them a round of applause from the City of Pasco. From the Port of Pasco, we have Commissioners Jim Clinworth and Gene Reichman. Give them a round of applause. And then from the Franklin PUD, we have Commissioner Stu Nelson. Where's Stu at? He's sitting over there. All right. I'd also like to take a moment and recognize some of the past presidents of the Pasco Chamber that are here in attendance today. If you could please stand up when I say your name. Dennis Giese, Jason Hogue, Tara Wiswall, Daryl Ebert, and Derek Brownson tried sneaking in, but I'm going to make him stand up. I think I caught all the past presidents. Thanks for coming out and continuing your support of, Joe Roach too. Okay, thank you. And Joe Roach. Thank you so much. Thanks for your service, past service, and continued service to the Pasco Chamber. I wanted to talk a little bit about, even though this has been one really long year since we've last been together for this meeting, since we didn't have them in person the previous two iterations, but I wanted to kind of walk through some of the things that the Pasco Chamber has been able to continue and accomplish this year. And by way of background, Pasco Chamber has been around since 1912, so we celebrated our 110th anniversary this year. You'll see that there's some coasters on the table. Please take those home or to your office. Make sure you don't get water rings on your desks, but thank you so much for being a part of that history, 110 years of that. Even Ed Ray was around for most of that too. Our focus has always been about, obviously, economic growth and really raising the profile of business and especially agriculture in our region. And the Chamber Board continues with that mission. And so from what we do, we always have that in mind, whether it's, events that we do or, certain things that the Pasco Chamber needs to be involved to provide support, whether it's to the city or the Port of Pasco and the county as well too. But definitely this year has been a transition back to normalcy, and we're running with that, and things have been going well. We had our Ag Hall of Fame, in person. We had a great turnout for that. If you missed it, you won't want to miss 2023 in January, but this past year was quite the turnout, and we had amazing inductees for that. And we had our golf tournament again too. That was a lot of fun, just right down the road at Sun Willows, and that's a good fundraiser for one of the projects that we had that I'll touch on a little bit later, but it has to do with our billboard. We had Crawfest again too in July. This would be our fourth year of doing that. The very first year, if you attended that, you would have been one of maybe about 65 people that had crawfish from a chef that had never done it before. That would be me. And Thankfully, there were some those that are from Louisiana that do it constantly and used to actually have the Big Jackson's celebration, if you ever recall that, on George Washington Way. And so they volunteered their time and they put it together. After 4 years, I think we had about 500 people show up, went through 1,300 plus pounds of crawfish, done right, and spicier the later it got in the day. So we do that at Osprey Point. Weather was great. We had a ton of volunteers, committee that worked on that as well too, but that's just a fun event, and that's going to keep growing, and I think it really provides the focus on some of the things that are happening in that area. And then, of course, that area being Osprey Point and the development that's going to occur around there, or has occurred. So, and then right around the corner in October, we're going to be river festing again too. So we're excited to be back at Columbia Park. At this point, we have 75 exhibitors telling their story of how the river system that we have impacts their lives, or how much value that our river system provides to not only just regionally, but in the Northwest. Obviously with the hydropower that it provides, the irrigation, the transportation, the recreation, so on and so forth. And so it's a free event. It's a family-friendly event. And there's a lot of activities for the kiddos to do. Plus, we're going to have a lot of food trucks, so you won't be hungry. We have some entertainment as well too. So Three Rivers Folk Life Society is putting together some entertainment for us, and Congressman Dan Newhouse will be there as well too to provide some words. But really appreciate. There's so many partners that we have to make sure Riverfest happens. And it's a big lift from the committee, but it really serves a great purpose. There's a time and a place for, a Save Our Dams rally. This is different. This is more of getting people together and learn, so that when there is discussions about, talk about removing the lower Snake River dams and everything else, you're better able to represent our region talking to folks that maybe don't know, and using that knowledge that you get, and maybe your kids and grandkids will learn something as well too, because though we won a little battle a couple weeks ago with the announcement from Governor Inslee and Patty Murray that they think that the value of keeping the Snake River dams in place for now is worthy, but like I said, it's just one battle in the war. Unfortunately, we've been doing this, it seems like, for a few generations now, but it's been 30 years. But we're happy with all of the support that you guys provide us, and obviously with our partners too. One of the things that we accomplished early this past fiscal year is with a lot of foresight and vision from the city of Pasco. All the cities and counties and local jurisdictions received ARPA funds, and council saw that there was need to get that money out to businesses that were still hurting from what they had to experience during the pandemic. And that was the first thing that council wanted to do with the leadership of administration too, is we need to get that money working as quickly as we can. And we partnered with the city of Pasco to get that out. We're kind of running, just flying as quick as we could, and we're able to distribute almost $2 million in COVID relief grants. And couldn't have done it without the help of Soul Case Management and Rolando and his team too. But it was a really good experience, because you got a chance to really connect with some businesses that may have been established for decades, or new businesses that were caught off guard with this. We had a committee that volunteered hours of their time to review all the applications, making sure we did everything correctly. These are federal funds, so it's nothing to mess around with. There was a lot of time on the phone and meetings just around that with the city to make sure, and we're still doing that because now we're getting audited, which we knew was coming, but we are very confident on how well we did to be good stewards of these funds, to make sure they went to where they need to go, to people that needed it and businesses that needed it. And then, yes, I mentioned a little bit about a billboard. I want to thank Randy for highlighting that last week. Dairy Gold, had their groundbreaking ceremony last week, and Randy had some remarks, and he pointed everybody just to look on the other side, which you couldn't see it from where you're standing, but that's where this billboard is. It, in part, has some images on there, but it says, "Keep your eye on Pasco." And sure is that we got that billboard up with a lot of thanks from Ed Ray and Malcolm Moe and the Port of Pasco. Got that up, and it seemed like just instantly Amazon announces that they're coming, and Dairy Gold announces that they're coming, and Northwest Bounty. So the timing for that couldn't have been any better. And to make sure that Ed Ray is satisfied, since he is the driving force to that, he said we need to get that thing lit. So, as I mentioned before, with the Sagebrush Scramble and the golf tournament, we're able to raise enough money to get solar on there. JMS is going to help us install that here in the next few weeks, and we can finally say that project is done. So, really excited. It's something that we're proud of to be a part of, and all this wouldn't happen if it weren't for the board members of the Pasco Chamber and just members as well too, making sure that they provide us the guidance that's needed and helping us out. So I want to thank you all, and please salute yourself and the board with a big round of applause. At this time, I'd like to invite Al Thiemens with GISA, today's sponsor, and we'd like to give him a little bit of time to share us a little bit about GISA. So with that, please welcome Al.
Hello everyone, my name is Al Thiemens. I'm a commercial lender for GISA Credit Union. And first I want to take a moment to thank Colin and the team from the Pasco Chamber for coordinating another great event. I'd also like to thank our keynote speaker Dave for joining us today. I'm excited to hear what he has to say. GISA offers all the resources you would expect to find at a full-service credit union, like excellent mortgage and auto lending options, low to no fee account services. We also have excellent commercial services, which is my favorite, and lending offerings. In addition to these services, GISA has focused on the communities that we serve. One of our key initiatives is to make a positive impact. Serving our communities and our members is the heart of every decision we make. Each day we set out to make choices that not only help our members navigate their finances, but also give back and better our community. In that spirit, I would like to take a moment and share about Hunger Action Month. September is Hunger Action Month, and to show our commitment to Second Harvest, we have committed to a $25,000 match to support their mission and feed those in need. Second Harvest supports many food banks across the region. They host mobile markets to distribute quality, healthy foods, and their Bite-to-Go kits provide school children in need with shelf-stable food that will last throughout the weekend when meals are not guaranteed. We hope you'll join us in learning more about Second Harvest by visiting secondharvest.org. Consider visiting one of our many GISA locations to drop off non-perishable food items, or perhaps consider volunteering some of your time to support this great organization. Again, thank you, Colin, for your support and allowing us to share this message, and thank you all.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Al. Thanks, GISA, for all your partnership throughout the years, and it seems like multiple times per year. They're also going to be a partner on our nonprofit luncheon showcase that we have in December. So they've been great working with, and they inspire us to do a lot with that in that sort of area, obviously, with the nonprofits. So at this time, I would like to have Rob. Rob is being thrust into duty a little bit earlier than planned because of Kim's absence. Rob is our incoming president, but we're going to have Rob come over here. We'd like to acknowledge some our past, some board members that are coming off, and then we have a couple awards too. So if Jason and Daryl, please come up and meet Rob at the table. Jason Hogue is our past president from 2021. He's going to be sad that he's not going to be part of our chamber meetings anymore, especially now that our board meetings are catered every month. But Jason brought great leadership to the board with always a quick wit, and quite frankly had board meetings very entertaining because of what he was able to do. And we're going to miss that. And then Daryl Ebert, with his second stint on the board, he's actually past president from 14-15. Unfortunately, most of the term that he was under was when we were meeting virtually because of COVID. But we're hoping to retain Daryl again at some point and have him back on. Daryl does an excellent job. When he was president, really made us focus on membership growth and benefits. So please accept this small token of our appreciation. But you can't be strangers, and we hope to see you at lunches throughout. So thank you so much. Next, we'd like to introduce a couple of recognition that we want to acknowledge. Unfortunately, one of the recipients had to leave. I saw her leave because she has, her daughter is getting her wisdom teeth taken out. So, but wanted to introduce Christina Vieira as our Volunteer of the Year. She jumped on board as a Pasco Chamber Board appointed member and immediately took on the role of being our liaison from the Pasco Chamber to the Franklin County Commissioners Redistricting Program. And that wasn't easy, and there's a lot of night meetings and a lot of engagement with the community. And with her help, representing the Pasco Chamber did a great job, came to a resolution that everybody was happy with, and she was a part of that. In addition to our ARPA funds that I mentioned out earlier, I think Christina, as well as Janet Mick, but I mean, they put many hours reviewing applications. She brought so much experience and knowledge of making sure that we were doing a good job, and her engagement on that beyond the hours of just following up on her own time to call and ask how things are going and to be prepared for this, that. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, she had to leave, but even though she's not here, we can give her a round of applause. We're happy for her service. Next, I'd like to introduce our Member of the Year. So Jared Balcom, if you want to make your way up here. So Jared Balcom provided us the land for the billboard. And if you've heard me over the years talk about the effort that it took to get the billboard, we had to put it somewhere, right? And quite frankly, we knew who we're going to go to. And you know, when you're talking about somebody else's land and asking them to donate that, I've never done that before, and I understand that might be a touchy situation, and we met with Ed and Ann, and I think the classic response that Jared said was, if Ed Ray wants it, Ed Ray gets it. So without, Jared doing that, we wouldn't have the billboard, so we want to thank you and acknowledge Balcom for providing that to us, so thanks. Want to also, before we get to Dave's presentation, is introduce our new members that are coming onto the Pasco Chamber Board. Many of you voted this year. That was, I think, our terms of voter turnout for the Pasco Chamber Board shows the engagement. This is, as far as I remember, the most ballots that we had returned. And so Edison Valerio with State Farm, please stand up. Charles Grimm with Grocery Outlet is also our new board member. And then Tim Brigman with STCU, if you could stand up. Thank you so much. Great. Well, thanks again, everyone. I'd like to transition now to introduce our keynote speaker. As you know, and many of you probably know Dave Zabell well. He's been city manager here with Pasco since 2014. Has over 40 years of government experience by way of city manager of Fife and was also in Yakima and Bothell, Marysville, and so forth. But we wanted to have Dave come up and provide a presentation, mainly because if you haven't known, Dave announced his retirement. So we welcome Dave to come up, share us a little update with the city of Pasco, and maybe some thoughts that you have too, since you're exiting this position. So let's welcome Dave. Is that
Perfect.
advance? We get some of this stuff out of your way.
So I was actually going to print this out, but the printer doesn't work. So I was going to talk a little bit about budget and the fact that we'll probably need a new printer because the other one's in a pile in April's office. So anyway, thank you to the chamber. It's always a pleasure to come here and talk to you a little bit about Pasco. The city's obviously a great organization and represents 80,000 awesome people as well as businesses. And so to be able to talk a little bit about the accomplishments of the city, I think is a great thing. And you recognize some of our council members earlier. These things don't get done without council members willing to spend the kind of time they do. And you're going to hear tonight, there's a lot of things coming to fruition this afternoon from things that the council's been planning for years. Back in the day when Matt Watkins was just a green new council member on the city council, and we're actually finishing one of the projects. I think that was on your first goal set when you joined the council back in 2004. Yeah. Yep. All right. But before I get started, I did want to note yesterday a couple things about the Dust Devils. I've been to the last two games. And so last night, obviously, was 9/11, and they did a great tribute, I think, on 9/11. That was pretty touching, actually. And with all that's happening in the world, Ukraine, Eastern Europe, and Queen Elizabeth dying, and I think 9/11 the anniversary got a little passed over on our national news, and I thought that was great, Daryl, to mention that. The other thing they didn't actually mention, I got to throw out the first pitch. And so when they announced me, they announced something like, Dave Zabell retiring after 8 years of working for the city of Pasco. And somebody says, wow, that's a great deal. Where do I sign up, Which I was thinking the same thing. It was kind of funny, but anyway, so coming out of the COVID fog, we still are. I mean, how many of you guys are feeling guilty sometimes when you walk out of your office into the hallway and you don't have your mask on, and you kind of feel around for it for a second? I think some of us are still doing that a little bit, or we walk into a business feeling bad about it. And when you're a city government, our primary focus is working with people. And we had our city hall closed for the better part of a year. And it was really tough on the staff. It was more difficult, obviously, on our population. And so part of what we've been doing the last 6-8 months is reacquainting ourselves with the public. We were able to do some things with City Hall closed to help make processes work a little bit better. So hopefully folks, when they've come in and used our City Hall, are finding that working better. But I did want to kind of note that because we hired a lot of staff in that period of time too, and it was a real adjustment for some of our staff to start to actually work with people other than over the phone. And you're hired to do that, but some of them are off probation by the time they actually were face to face with a citizen concerned about their water bill, or their dog license or what have you. So anyway, just a couple items to go over to give you a little bit of background. So Pasco, our population, for those of you that don't know it, is up over 80,000 now and continues to grow, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. City budget's approaching $500 million, probably will be this year given all the capital projects that are in it. That's operating and capital. We have about 400 employees, right around 400 employees, and we just are in the process, council is of considering capital improvement plan, that's the CIP, for a 6-year period that is approaching $833 million. So ton of investment going on in Pasco. A lot of that money is leveraged city money with grants and low-interest loans and things like that. So I think the city staff has done just a great job, and particularly in Public Works, but in other departments as well, and rounding up other people's money to help us build projects that we need. So it seems like a lot of dollars, but you know, we'll be going through that budget process here just in the next couple of months. It is very fiscally conservative, and we have council members that keep a pretty close eye on our finances. And I have like 45 slides, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on each slide. So, but growth rate and population, this is always a really pretty interesting slide. And you can see basically in the 21st century, Pasco has really taken off, and it continues to grow. The bar graph is the population, and that looks pretty benign. It doesn't look like that horrible of a thing to have to deal with, but that represents a lot of growth. If we probably put it on a different scale, it would look more like a downhill Olympic, you know, ski jump, but except opposite. Our population is expected to be 125,000 by 2038. And so we're 80 right now. So we're going to see a lot more people coming into the community over that period of time. It seems like a lot, but if you look at that growth rate, which is about, over the last 10 years, 3% or so, take the peaks and the valleys off of that. And that gets you to about 125,000 population in 2028. That takes a lot of preparation. That's not something you just let happen and you don't plan for it. So one of the things I'm really proud of, and you know, as Colin said, I worked for 4 other cities, and this is the first city I've worked with where we were able to do our long-range comprehensive plan, our land use plan, and then that's very much integrated with water, sewer, transportation. Parks and Rec is just wrapping up, and that's something, as much as it's a goal, right, that we'd love to see all of our cities and counties doing, doesn't happen very often. And so for Rick White, our CED director, that was his first experience with that as well. And I think, I feel good. It leaves the city in, I think, a really good place. Now, it's dynamic and things change. And what happens over the next 20 years may or may not pan out the way we anticipate it will now. But council, the planning commission in particular, the council makes a little bit of money. The planning commission works for free. And they take a lot of flack. So another really tough volunteer job if anybody is interested. We have a great planning commission, and it's awesome to have people that are willing to sacrifice of themselves to do that kind of work. So one of the things with all this growth is our assessed valuation. So that's the total valuation for all the properties in city, the land as well as the improvements. So you can see that skyrocketed actually a little bit faster rate than population has. We've gone up 550%, 515% since 2002. And the last few years, last 6 or 7 years, it's really shot up. So that's an exciting thing. One thing that does is drive the property levy rate down, the city's share of the property levy rate. So our property levy right now is probably about $1.43. The max the city can charge is $3.60 per thousand. And so that assessed valuation is the denominator. So we're going to see a ton of growth in that. We have a number of projects in the pipeline I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here. They're going to drive that rate down even further. So that says a lot about the amount of private investment in the city. So economic development-wise, the city's had a long-term focus on infrastructure. Historically, we have. I think if you look back at the early 2000s, we saw that growth really start to take off. A lot of that investment was just trying to keep up with growth. And the last several years, we've been doing a lot of renewal and rebuilding systems. One thing about government is you put a sewer lift station in, or a pressure reducing valve, or a water treatment plant in 20 years ago, and in your mind it's still new. And things wear out, especially the sewer side. Can't believe what people put in their sewer. But yeah, utilities, roads, things like that, just the sun wears out the pavement over time. Not even school buses and trucks and our own vehicles. So it's something you kind of have to stay on top of all the time. You know, we talk about, our city map has, if you look at it aerial-wise, you go on satellite photo and look at the city, and you'll see the area that kind of grew out in those early 2000s to, say, 2015 or 2012, and you see all these sidewalks and curbs and gutters. So when those roads are all 20 years old, and they'll be 20 years old at about the same time, we'll be needing to repave them at about all the same time. So those are the kind of things you kind of need to think about a decade or more out in advance. And so our council and staff is doing, I think, a good job of trying to do that. Ag industry, one of the pieces of infrastructure that really supports the ag processing industry is our processed water reuse. That's PWRF up there. That facility, which was a partnership with PUD, Gene Reichman was part of that at that time, and certainly the Port of Pasco. And between those two agencies in the city, we built the processed water reuse back in mid-1990s or so. And again, that was another facility that we built it, and then we remembered, about 7 or 8 years ago we needed to start fixing it. But we put a lot of money into that. Those dollars come from the processors themselves, so it's not ratepayer money, it's not any money you're paying for, but it supports thousands of jobs and a lot of taxable private property and a lot of payroll. So it's a really important piece. We're going to do a lot of technology in there, upgrades over the next few years. I'd tell you about it, but then I'd have to wake you, so I won't get into that whole discussion. A Street and Heritage, I want to talk about that a minute. Those are emerging areas. Heritage Industrial Park, those on the east side of town, and as well as A Street out to the west. That's where the Amazons are going in, local bounties going in out there. So there's a lot of activity out there. I'm going to talk a little bit about that more in a minute. Downtown, some big projects going down there, and the council's ongoing efforts at renewal. Broadmoor, I got some things to talk a little bit about there, maybe some updates. That's 700 acres of mixed use that's right now sand dunes and desert. And it's a pretty exciting opportunity for the city, right in the middle of Tri-Cities geographically. And then we have newly annexed areas. We talked about adding 45,000 more people here over the next 16, 17 years. A lot of them will go up into the 2,800 acres the city's just recently annexed to the north and in the west part of the community. So you can see industrial development. Those are the ones we've had announced right now, about $2 billion. You add all those up. Some of those you may have heard of. Amazon, obviously. Reesers built a brand new facility. They're just running that through the kinks out of that. Dairy Gold facility, many of you were at the groundbreaking or know about it from earlier this week. And that's another great port initiative there, and that's going to bring about $500 million, just $600 million just on the building itself, plus another storage facility up around about the 250 million mark. I'm seeing heads nod from the port table. They know all about this stuff. But so that's exciting. Local bounty, they're back in. They took a bit of a pause, but they're back in and under construction off A Street, just to the west of Oregon. And then Tarragon, you may or may not have heard of. If you read the Business Journal, you've probably seen it. If you haven't read the Business Journal lately, they're building 2.5 million square feet of industrial space right next to Amazon. So just to the south of Amazon, between Amazon and the port properties. And for a little bit of perspective, the two Amazon buildings, I think, are 1.1 and 1.2 respectively. So those will bring, obviously, thousands of jobs to the community as well. Certainly going to have some impacts, which we're, one of the projects we're looking at right now is the development of East Road 40 north of A Street that'll tie into East Lewis. And so that long dead end on Lewis that some of you might be familiar with will, in the next year or two, be connected all the way down to A Street, and we can keep those trucks off of A Street and off that intersection at Heritage. So again, these are some of the things you kind of need to be thinking about. And it all happened at once here, you know. I think AutoZone seemed like a bit of the turning point. Certainly we had good ag interest, but in terms of some of the other warehousing things, AutoZone being on the map started really getting folks' attention. One of our standby industries that you're all familiar with, new single-family homes, because we have all these people moving to Pasco. And you can see some of these years back in the early 2000s again, 1,000 single-family homes, over 1,000, a couple of those years. But we're right now, we're averaging between 500 and 600 on a pretty steady basis over the past several years. Certainly that adds value, but it adds homes. One of the things we're all seeing, though, is housing affordability, so that is on the council's, excuse me, on council's priority list is affordability, and they've taken some steps. That's probably a conversation where Jacob Gonzalez could do a great job of getting you a little bit more familiar with some of the opportunities the council's created with some of their recent actions, and he can speak much more in depth than most of us about it. But the city's comprehensive plan effort, as I mentioned earlier, has identified the areas to the north and west of the city. So up north of Burns Road, you're going to see a lot of residential growth out there. And we're in the process right now of trying to lay out roads and utilities through local improvement districts, which would be property owner funded extension of water and sewer lines and perhaps roads out in that area. So pretty exciting time, and we'll see some impacts out there, certainly on Broadmoor, and we'll see some impacts on Road 68, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute as well. Another big economic development focus area is our downtown. Of course, everybody's seen the Lewis Street Overpass, and that's under construction. If you haven't been by there in the last couple of weeks, there's girders up over the railroad, and it actually is starting to look a bit like an overpass now. So instead of a bunch of bridge abutments standing up by themselves. So that's exciting to see that. That'll probably, we're hoping for to be able to walk across it at Cinco. Probably won't be opened at Cinco de Mayo next year, but it'd be pretty neat if it was far enough along that we could actually do a little bit of a walk over it. So that's early next summer, we should see that bridge operational. Overpass, as most of us know, replaces an 80-year-old underpass. We'll have bike lanes and nice wide pedestrian areas. And that's really going to make a great connection to a part of our town where we have 15, 20,000 people that really it's not an easy chore to be on foot or bike to get between Oregon and our downtown. If you're in a car, it's okay, as long as you don't have mirrors sticking out that might get taken off by a pickup truck or something. But anyway, that's a great improvement. Again, and that's one of those projects that started in the early 2000s and takes 20 years to get done. It takes legislative assistance for funding. It takes the city's own funding, and we got some federal dollars in there. There's cleanup we had to do environmentally, still dealing with some things that, still getting a couple surprises, and we've been looking at this thing for 20 years. So, but soon on the horizon. Peanuts Park, we just saw the Mercado, the pavilion completed, and that's already very popular. We've had a lot of use on that site already. People excited about it for a large gathering place. And what you'll see in the next couple of years is Peanuts Park to the north, the little segment just to the north of that, undergoes a similar renovation. That piece is going to be probably more geared toward passive art. So you're going to see some art displays, maybe sculptures, maybe metal, murals, things like that out at that area. It's really going to be a neat, peaceful gathering place for the community. It is now, but we're going to move that bunch on, and we're going to make it open for others to enjoy it as well. So, and then we'll also have a nice parking lot where the Thunderbird Hotel used to be. So we got the building down. It's hauled off and recycled. So Another piece downtown. So downtown's been a big focus of the councils for about 15 years. Is Lewis Street Corridor project. From this picture, let me assure everybody, we're not replacing the buildings. Okay, we're just going to do a little bit of work on the street, get the sidewalks widened, restripe it, get some multimodal, some bike lanes, things like that out there. Property owners and business owners be able to use that sidewalk for sidewalk sales or outdoor seating, those type of things. Matter of fact, we have a program right now for restaurants in our downtown area for outdoor seating, chairs, gas heaters, lighting, things like that. So exciting times ahead. Don't have any takers on it just yet, but we're kind of getting that organized. That'll be from 2nd to 5th is what that segment will be. In terms of the first level of widening, there'll be another segment that goes out to 10th at a later date. And let's see, Broadmoor development. So I've been hitting around at this one. This is, again, hundreds of acres right off the interstate. And this was sand dunes. Folks probably know it as the sand dunes. And it's a mixed use, regional scale development out there. So it's from a scale standpoint, we're looking at, Columbia Center as being about equivalent to this in terms of size. Let's see, what can I talk about? What can I? Yeah. There's, let's just say we have a lot of big box interest, retail interest out there. Those talks are coming along pretty well. There's a lot of rumors, but I can't confirm or deny at this point in time on particularly one without getting in trouble with that particular retailer. And then we have another major shopping center developer based in the Midwest looking at about 25, 30 acres out there as well for a Fred Meyer type facility with a number of shops and out lots around it. So there's a lot of interest out there. And beyond the commercial, there's probably about 7,000 residential units planned for that area. That's where a lot of that new growth is going to be, and this is going to be higher density stuff. There's some single family out there, but there's a lot of multifamily that'll occur out there. There's some great views to take advantage of with 5 to 7 foot tall buildings out there. Excuse me, floor. Yeah, 5 to 7. But 5 to 7 floors out there, and you can see, all of Richland, half of Kennewick, the Columbia River. We're looking to, towards the water, it's going to be probably, we're talking probably a 20-year build out. Towards the water, we're looking at something on par with what you're seeing on the other side over in the Richland area. So that's the vision right now for developing that area. The city is just completing their draft Broadmoor master plan, which will actually have an environmental impact statement associated with it. And so that should be out for release, I think, probably next week for public comment. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested in it. We'll have it obviously online, but we'll do a press release on that as well. You should be able to download that link and get some good information on it. So the infrastructure out there, you think about 7,000 units. The infrastructure out there really isn't quite ready for that just yet. And so we're doing something new. It's a tool the port's already taken advantage of called tax increment financing, which will take the increment between the undeveloped state of a piece of property and its development state. And then you can use the increment that's after development. That'll generate a certain amount of taxes. Say it's $2 million right now for all 700 acres, right? And it goes to $10 million. That gives you $8 million worth of city share of taxes, plus the ports, plus the counties, that you can use to finance infrastructure. So we're looking at financing about $39 million worth of road and utility infrastructure out in that area. And that would entail a new loop ramp for westbound exit off of eastbound exit off of 182. That'll bring it around in a loop, and we'll get rid of that backup on the freeway. We'll do some intersection improvements up there to make that operate a lot better. We'll be widening Broadmoor from 182 up and through Burns Road. We will be widening Sandifer back about 1,200 feet from the intersection where it is now to the east, and then developing it out to Road 108, which is about a half a mile west of Road 100 out into the desert. And then we'll be connecting Harris Road up through the 108th alignment to Sandifer. So you'll have a pretty major intersection there. And then we'll be eliminating the Harris Road connection on Broadmoor. So it's a ton of work up there, but it's going to get that area ready for commercial. And it's basically priming the pump to get big commercial out there. If we just let the development community, particularly for commercial, it's very difficult to pencil out commercial. Many in the room know that with certain developments, and we're talking pretty significant street sections and signal and intersection stuff. And Broadmoor, as you know, we already have issues at Broadmoor, and same as the interchange. We have backups now in the interchange, so you add 7,000 houses out there in the next 20 years. Obviously, that would be disastrous. So the idea is if we prime the pump a little bit, we'll get much higher value commercial and residential development out there than if we let it develop as gas stations and mini storage and kind of a hodgepodge of different things. And so that's been the vision of the council for several years. That continues to be the vision of the council, and that's what we've been working toward. And you should see that come up to our council for consideration of an ordinance. So already came to us in a resolution form, and council was supportive of it just a few months ago. Next month, about mid-October, council will be considering that for an ordinance, which will form the transportation, the tax increment finance area, and then we can move forward. We won't be able to fund it till next year, but we actually have much of the design underway already for majority of the projects out in that area. So we're going to get a jump on that with current dollars, and you'll see some of those big projects I just talked about, big transportation projects and associated water and sewer under construction in about the middle of next year. So exciting work out there. There's more work to do on that interchange. A couple things. You'll see probably in 5 or 6 years a pedestrian bike bridge. I've heard a lot of community complaints about with the Delta High School out there, about folks, students and others trying to get back and forth over the freeway. There's not much we can do with that bridge because we need all that bridge deck for traffic at this point in time. Within the next few years we will, and so that's why a separate bridge. It's not something we can cantilever out and just widen the bridge. We actually have to build a separate structure. Is going to be cheaper. Very similar to what happened. Those of you that saw the Court Street bike ped facility go in several years ago, it's going to be very similar to that. Another piece, probably about 15 to 20 years out, that we're already in the planning stage on, is Overpass. It's called the Harris Road Overpass, which would connect Harris Road and 108 intersection, which is a half a mile west of Broadmoor, over the freeway to the other side to connect up to Chapel Hill. Other end of Chapel Hill on Road 76, there'll be a Road 76 overpass. That's going to happen a little bit quicker. We're probably talking 6 or 7 years for that to occur. And that's going to give a lot of relief to Road 68. So we've modeled build-out conditions a couple different ways, like pretty extensively. And those two overpasses and the interchange improvements, we're talking about the immediate ones, and then the ones probably 15 to 20 years out are going to be able to handle all the traffic that's going to be generated by the development out there. So that's pretty exciting for us. I want to talk a little bit about public safety. That's been a high priority of the city councils, both on the fire and police side. And I've talked to this group before about the new stations. And I think the last time I was here, we were probably finishing one, but Station 84 on Court Street is open now and operational, if you haven't noticed that. And that's where the fire admin group is. So the chief and deputy chiefs are there, the training folks, the ambulance safety coordinator, those folks are all housed at that location. That's kind of their business office. And then Station 83, we had talked about the relocation of 83 last time I was here, and I think we had just opened, and I can report to you that from a logistics standpoint, that now is our busiest station because it got moved into the heart of where all the calls are, which was our intent, and it's dramatically dropped response out there because they're not having to drive up the hill and over the freeway before they even get to the residential areas. So that turned out to be a very good investment. A couple other ones, you see the little dot out there on Road 100 south of 182. That's Station 85. You drive by there right now, you'll see the utilities are going in the ground, and probably would be to construction next year to sometime on that. That's going to really improve things out in the west end for responses, and it is absolutely necessary for supporting the commercial area up in Broadmoor. So you talk about the cost of that. There is a cost to it, but that commercial area is going to generate probably millions of dollars in taxes, sales tax alone, let alone property tax. It'll generate, which a lot of it's going to be paying debt anyway, but it'll generate a lot of sales tax that'll help support those fire and police needs. And then 87 is a little bit more, that's the one out in King City. And you know, that really kind of just depends on industrial growth and what we work out with the Colvilles. As everyone knows, Colville's bought property, significant property out there, and we're in the process of just getting to the point to sit down with them, talk a little bit about cost of services and provision of services on the tribally owned land. And they're going through their own process of moving that property into what's called trust status, which gives them a little bit more independence with the property. And so I think we're kind of working with that timing with them. They're not really anxious to sit down and work out too much detail until they get a little further along in that process. So on the police side, so we're tonight at council, we're going to be talking a little bit about district model policing, and something a little bit different than what we've been doing. Right now we have 4 police officers, 4 different beats, and a sergeant at any one time in our city. So you stop and think about that, you basically have 1 police officer for 20,000 people to respond to calls. And that's a little light. It can be a little bit light on a Saturday night or a Friday night or a busy night, right? I think our response times are pretty low compared to most agencies, but our folks are not able at that level of staffing, they're not able to do some of the proactive community-oriented policing that we really want our officers to be doing, and it really stops crime, helps to stop crime from happening rather than responding to crime. We can all respond to a crime. I mean, response time, a low response time is a good thing, but low response time means the crime's already happened or is about to happen. So if we can do more proactive things, we can get that crime rate down further. So the chief's going to be presenting that, Chief Roski, tonight at council, and it's in our police master plan that was just approved by council last month. And goals of that, as you can see, maintain our high level of service. It'll actually improve it, quicken our response times, allow for greater transparency. And basically what is going to happen is put more officers on the street, and it's going to put more supervision on the street too. So the span of control of a sergeant won't be so overwhelming with all the incidents that can happen right now in any particular time. So if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to take a look at that either tonight live or at your convenience online. So some future opportunities we have, obviously shared a little bit earlier about $833 million worth of infrastructure improvements. So we're going to continue on that effort because it seems to be paying off. Levy lid and public safety, I talked to you a little bit and gave you a little bit of insight on what all this great assessor valuation is doing to the levy rate, which is getting lower and lower and lower. Now your property tax may be going up, but it's not going up from the city's share. And one of the other reasons I talked to you about the service levels is because our plan is to get service levels up. So one of the opportunities we might be looking for to really move the department, the police department and fire, to staff some of these facilities, to staff the newer facilities, particularly Station 87, it could be a levy lid lift for public safety. That might bump your levy rate to maybe a couple dollars from $1.43 or maybe $2.20. I can tell you probably we took the bank capacity for a similar reason back about 5-6 years ago, and bumped it up to 195, and it was right back within 2 years to where it was previously. So because of our growth, those are not as scary a numbers as they might be in other communities. But you'll probably see, and we have yet to talk to council much detail on that, but you may see some discussion on that later this year or early next year. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, and I won't be here, but I know our council is going to want to go through a pretty robust public outreach process for that. Looking at community resources, we have a big project that we're able to fund with a combination of state and federal dollars at Martin Luther King Community Center, and then as well as in conjunction with the PFD project that Matt Watkins talked about earlier, the long-awaited community center out probably in the Broadmoor area in fairly close proximity to the aquatics facility. So I think that those two could play off each other pretty well. We're also talking about co-locating with other partners out there, potentially Columbia Libraries. So could be a really well-used facility out there. Housing affordability, as I mentioned before, that's something council's been working on and continues to be a priority of theirs. So you'll see movement on that to try to address that over the next few years. The behavioral health and homelessness, two other issues. Everyone, I think, in the room is aware of the 1/10 mental health sales tax. That committee is underway. I don't know that they've made any big headway at this point in time because I think they've just kind of been at it for a couple months. But you're going to see that play out over the next 6 months to a year. I think, Colin had asked me about saying a few parting things, and of course I have 3 sitting council members here, so I'm not going to say too much, but no, just kidding. But I think one of the things that's made the city extremely successful is there's always the issue of the moment. There's always people coming at you and their issue is super important and it's a big deal. Our council historically and continues to value vision and strategy over the issues of the moment. And it keeps them from getting distracted, keeps staff from getting distracted, and keeps us focused on the things that are important that really move the community in the right direction. And as I shared with you, given all the growth, I probably should get up there. All the growth we've had is it's kept us a couple steps ahead of it, and the wheel's not falling off. And I've said this before many times in front of this group. That is something that goes way back. That's you saw the 1,000 houses a year for a couple of years back in the early 2000s. That was an administration before mine, and it was a council before this. So that's been something this council has been pretty good about doing for a very long time. One of the things we added, I've mentioned it here before, I'll say it again because we're trying to promote the use of it, and plus John Funfire's here, is Ask Pasco app. That's actually works pretty well. Basically, it's an app you can download. You got a question or a concern or want to report a sign or a pothole or whatever. Not only will that get to us, you'll get an answer back pretty quickly. You'll get a case number. You'll get a staff member eventually will get back to you within a few days of what happened to the issue, so it doesn't go in a black hole and die for lack of a response. So, and you can put your own mind to rest. So I'd ask to take a look at that and use it. And then, gosh, I think that's pretty much wraps it up except for progress, prosperity. Oh yeah, there's one more. I'm leaving. Yeah. I'll get to it here. Yeah, there it is, one more thing. I'm leaving. So, little John Wayne humor there from John Funfar. But I want to thank the Pasco Chamber. My own personal time here, this has always been a great group to get information out to and get advice from. And you guys, 8 years ago, welcomed me here. And Colin's been a great partner to work with. The support's it's been great. Anytime I've needed something from the chamber or from Colin, he's delivered. And the ARPA partnership, the CARES partnership, was phenomenal. And as Colin says, we're getting audited on it right now. We're pretty proud of how that partnership worked. We're not afraid of the auditor. The auditor is dealing with a lot of things because, it's a surprise program, no rules were written the first 6 months. It took forever for the federal government to finalize things. But we have great documentation, and the team that worked on the business assistance applications just did an incredible job, and all volunteer. And we got a lot of help out to a lot of people that needed it. So anyway, thank you. It's an awesome community to work with, and happy to have worked with all of you. So, thank you. Any questions? No?
Well, you can't leave yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you're not quite leaving yet. Let's see if this mic works. We do want to thank you for all your effort, and as a token of our appreciation, we want to send you off to retirement the right way. So first, what's retirement without a very nice Hawaiian shirt? But now that it's a tradition in Pasco, as a retiring city manager, that your look has to change. We got Dave a mullet and a mustache, so the next time you see Dave at Yokes, you won't run into him or you won't know it's him. So it's not silver. I had trouble finding that, but thank you so much.